Welcome back into the studio. Now this is going to be a very different video. I'm going to be talking about selling your artwork and in particular how to price it. Okay, now rather than you being bored looking at my face as I'm talking to you, I thought I'd show just some clips of my videos that you may not have seen. They're all tier 3 videos, so perhaps a few of you haven't actually seen those, and hopefully if you enjoy what you're seeing in the background as I'm talking, you'll want to try them out and maybe check out tier 3 on my Patreon as well. Okay, so let's jump right into it. I used to sell my paintings back then. I was doing solely oil paintings many years ago, and that was my sole art business. Okay, I did no teaching at that point. It was just selling originals and limited edition prints. I did that for quite a few years and got to a point where everything I painted sold out. My prints were selling every week. I was selling multiple prints. Most of my time actually was spent not painting but packaging all my products up to ship around the world. So that was really good, really successful. 2008, the market crashed. I went from selling for really high amounts, or what I thought was high amounts, down to the next day literally selling for virtually nothing. Fortunately, a few months before that I'd started teaching online, and that had really taken off. Plus I was doing all this while still being employed in a different company with something completely different. Okay, so I had another form of income behind me. So I didn't have the stress of having to sell artwork all the time just to put food on the table for myself and my family. Now, I don't bother selling at all because, as I said, my teaching took off, and now, well, I've been professional just doing teaching for probably 15 years, and that is my sole income, and it has been in that time. And that's all I've got time for. But there's still lots of crossover of the knowledge I had back then for selling originals and prints and promoting myself online with my lessons. Okay, so all that should hopefully be relevant for you. Okay, so what I see and hear online a lot, artists want to sell their drawings and their paintings. They want to become perhaps full-time professional artists selling originals and prints, but mainly originals. A lot of the print market has really died now. And what people generally want to know is what price exactly should you put your artwork at for various sizes. And I will get to that at the end, and I will give you what lots of people don't give. I'll give you specific numbers as well. But you need to keep all this in context. It's all dependent on, are you looking to mainly or solely sell online? Are you looking to mainly or solely sell in your local area, or a bit of both? Because that makes a huge difference to your prices and your marketing as well. This day and age, you've got your best chance by selling online, especially if you live in an area that doesn't have, well, a lot of money, say a rich area, a place where lots of well-off people actually live. Okay, now all countries have got these areas. So if you live in one of those, or you've got access to be able to display your work to the people that have got lots of money, then that's definitely one way you can earn a full-time living. So let's say, for instance, you live in a very affluent, well-off area, and you put your advert, say a little flyer, in all the local vets, dog groomers, pet shops, everywhere where you know somebody who owns a dog, a cat, a horse, whatever type of pet. It's where they frequent. Okay, so let's look at this part of it first. not selling basically online. Okay, so if you're in a rich area and you put your flyer up, perhaps you're going to say a small dog portrait is £500. People that go there, if they've got a lot of money, they expect to pay money for quality work. So they're not going to, bat an eyelid at £500. It's probably nothing to them. And if they saw something for sale for perhaps £50, they definitely wouldn't touch it, because in their mind, and they generally know, you get what you pay for, and if it's that cheap, it's not quality. Now, if you go to the other end of the spectrum and you go in an area where perhaps there's lots of poverty, lots of unemployment, people don't have money, and you put that exact same flyer into the vets, the dog groomers, whatever, £500 for your pet portrait, there's no way you're going to get a sale at that price. Perhaps you'd have to go all the way down to £50. Okay, so where the rich person would definitely not spend £50 on the pet portrait because they think it's not quality, the, let's say, less well-off poor person is expecting to pay £50 or less. Okay, or even a family member, they want it for free sometimes. So you've got to take that into consideration. Now, because of the internet, you can now reach basically anybody in the world. So that means people that are in areas that are poor or out of the way even. Okay, so not just poor, it may be a rich area, but perhaps you're living right out in the sticks. Now you've got access to everyone in the world. That's the good part. It's also the bad part, because you've now got competition with everybody else in the world. Now that brings me on to, let's talk about online selling, because that's generally what 99% of you are going to do. Take that first bit of information I've given you into consideration if you're doing things like art fairs, Christmas fairs, craft fairs. The prices is dependent on the area and the affluence of the area you're trying to sell in. Okay, so just keep that in mind, and now we look at online marketing instead. So how do you find your price? And this is why lots of professional artists, when they're asked how much should I sell my work for, don't like giving advice to people. Okay, because many people are not going to want to learn the truth. And the thing is, if you're working online, or you're looking to set up a business online, or you're already established online, okay, because all this matters, you need to ask yourself one particular question: how good are you? Okay, how good is your work? Because from what I've seen, the vast majority of pet portraits, okay, so because let's look at that, as that's generally what people are asking me about, pet portrait in some form or another. You've got a lot of competition, and most people buying pet portraits, they want an accurate representation of their pet, dog, cat, horse. They want it to look like it or exactly like it. Okay, not very often you're going to have a person ask for some form of abstract artwork of a dog, for instance. It's usually going to need to be very accurate. So you've got competition. The market is really quite flooded with pet portrait artists. There's a lot of good artists out there. You need to know where you are in that position, and you need to look at it realistically, objectively. Don't be upset. Some people have been creating for 25 years, others for 1 year. You need to find the place that you are sitting as far as your technical abilities now in that list. So you need to go online and look for artists that you think are of the same or close to ability as you, okay, where you fit in with them. If you don't think you can place yourself in there, maybe ask some friends that you would respect their opinion of, perhaps other artists. But if you're going to do that, don't be upset when they tell you exactly where they think you fit. Okay, if you're going to ask them, you've got to be prepared for the hard truth. You may be better than you think, you may not be as good as you think. But the general person on the street, they look at the work that they're seeing online, because they will have done a search for, say, a pet portrait artist, and they're looking in there for a certain quality. Okay, even the general person knows when something looks realistic and right or not. Okay, so put yourself in that tier, that level, and then ask yourself these other things. Have you already got a following online? Have you already got previous clients? How long have you been doing pet portraits, for instance, or other artwork? Have you got a reputation in the area, or specifically online, as being good, as being an expert in your field? Have you been in perhaps local newspapers, online? That's something else to take into consideration. I know you want to get to the numbers at the end, but you've got to take this into consideration, because this is what most professionals don't tell you. So look online at other artists you think are your level. Look at as many as you possibly can, okay? Not just the first ones that come up in the search engine. They may very well be paying high amounts for advertising and things, and be working it on a whole new marketing level than you are going to get or even want to get. So start going down a few pages from that first page as well, and start looking at more normal people, normal artists that maybe are not advertising and maybe have only been creating for the same length of time as you. Don't compare yourself. If you're starting off with somebody that's been doing this for 20 years and built up clientele for 20 years and a reputation for 20 years. So go online, look at their price ranges, write them down. Write as many as you can for the sizes of artwork they've got. Okay, keep that for later. Now, look at their websites, see how professional it all looks. Have they paid for perhaps a professional web designer to do it? Do you get a feeling as soon as you're on there that they're really professional, their artwork looks good? The process of booking a commission, finding the prices, that's all easy to follow. Check out their About Me page, see if what their history is, how successful you think they are. Are they saying things like, my books are full for this year, I can't take on any more commissions for the next 6 months? Those are things to keep in mind, because generally that means they're successful. If they are more, yep, I've got spaces now, hurry up, buy your commission to get it in time before Christmas when there's only 3 weeks left, you can generally know that they're not doing that good, or at least they're not fully booked up, and they're trying to bring in money and work all the time. Okay, they haven't got enough. If they're very, very successful, they don't have to keep almost begging for work. They don't have to do things like special offers. They don't have to do things like get your pet portrait for 50% off, but only if you order it within the next 24 hours. Things like that can work as marketing and drive people to make quick decisions, but it can also, for me, I look at it and think, okay, they're not doing that good. I've wrote some notes down to make sure that I cover things. So, okay, the next thing people are going to say is, okay, so once you know a rough figure, and I'll show you some figures or tell you some figures at the end, are you going to price per inch, per time, per size, drawing? Keep something in mind. It depends how quick you are at creating your artwork. Some mediums are much slower. for the same or similar amount of detail, so perhaps coloured pencils could be considered. Much slower than pastel pencils. I can do oils, probably even quicker than pastel pencils. Things like graphite, if I'm doing it very realistically, would take a lot longer. You need to keep that in your mind, because you've got to work out if this is feasible. You need to know how much you have to earn. Is this going to be a sideline? Is it needing to be your whole income? Have you got perhaps a partner that can support you while this business builds? Have you got another job that supports you and takes the pressure off as this builds? And that's how I did it. I had another full-time job. I built up my art business in the evenings until it got to the point where I couldn't do both things. It wasn't enough time in the day, and I was earning roughly the same amount from both jobs. I had a bit of extra pressure because I was at that time the only one bringing in money into the household. If I left my secure job, there was no going back to it. So I had to make that decision in an area that doesn't have many jobs, okay? But if you've got steady income, that's good. As it happened, the market crash happened, and I became ill right after I gave up work, which put extra pressure on it, of course, but it all worked out in the end. So you need to work out how much you need to earn. If you have got another job and this is a sideline where you're thinking, I'd be happy just to get enough money to support my supplies, that's a very different approach, needing different techniques and marketing than somebody who says, this has got to work, it's all or nothing, I'm the only one earning the money, I've got to have X amount of money coming in for the mortgage, the heating, my food, things like that, okay? So if you've got some form of support system behind you, that's by far the most ideal, because that takes a lot of the stress off you. Okay, I'll get on to how you increase prices and things like that. Okay, so how do you even get clients? It's all well and good talking about prices, but how are you going to even get them? Few avenues, you can do some of them, all of them. I've already stated, put flyers, they're cheap to buy these days, you can print them off yourself. Vets, dog groomers, if you've got horses and stables around you, go for that. Places like pet shops, everywhere that pets go, okay? Put flyers up there. That's where you get local footfall going in, okay? And that could be, perhaps you'll get a couple a year, or perhaps you get loads that way. I don't know, it depends on your situation. Next thing, don't rely on social media. That changes all the time. You could start paying for adverts or getting some photographs on Facebook or Instagram, and it could go fantastic, all for nothing. And then next day, you're right off of the radar and nobody sees any of your posts whatsoever. Absolutely do not put all your eggs in one basket. Do not rely on social media. That's not the way to run a business. It's too unpredictable. Get yourself a website that is completely predictable, okay? Get it designed good. If you don't know how to do it yourself, unless you've got lots of time to spare, just building one yourself is really time consuming. If you've got a few £100 to put into this business, get somebody who knows what to do to build you an easy, clean looking basic website. You will need to have images of your artwork. They need to be good, okay? No rubbish ones with bad lighting or blurry. They need to be as good as you can possibly do them, because this is your point of call. The client may only ever look at that website once. It's got to be right. Okay, so get a website built, and then you need to build the most important marketing thing you'll have, and that's your email newsletter, okay, your contacts list. You need to have somewhere on your website, on your social media, wherever, to get those email addresses, telephone numbers, a form of contact for potential clients. That's what you're after. You need to build that up, because when you do things like want to market things, you want to try and assess if you can put your prices up, you want to assess how well your business is doing, it'll come down to the newsletter that you'll send out, the mail shots. Okay, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in a moment. So that's very, very important. It may seem like something you just bypass over and think, look, I just want hits on Instagram. I just want 10,000 followers on Instagram and it'll all be okay. It's a lot different, somebody on their phone scrolling through, looking at pretty pictures, looking at the dog you've done, for instance, then scrolling past, than somebody that goes to a website looking for a pet portrait. They've come on your website, they like the look of it, they like the look of your artwork, they've got money in their pocket, they want to spend. That's how you get a client, not somebody who's scrolling past on social media. Still do the social media, but don't bank on those things working. Much better than social media are groups on Facebook and social media. So groups, think again, if you're doing pet portraits, where are the people going that are looking for a pet portrait? They may go on Facebook and type in pet portraits. They may then look on groups where artists are putting up their pet portraits. You need to find out where your clients are looking, and you need to be seen there. So look on social media, look for pet portrait groups and things like that, but keep in mind these groups have got rules, regulations. Usually you need to be posting your work within those rules, otherwise you just get banned. Okay, okay, let me just check a few of my notes to make sure. Okay, so something I want to mention. You go on many, and it is many, but it's not as many these days as it was, say, 10 years ago. Artists, they seem to be so afraid of the pricing of their artwork that they don't even put it on their website. Okay, so they'll show perhaps all these wonderful dog and cat portraits on this site. The site looks really professional, and then at the top they'll have pricing. You click on it and it says contact me directly for a price. If I was a client, that's the point at which I leave. There's no way I'd be emailing somebody and asking them for a price. I know why they're doing it. Well, a couple of reasons perhaps, but mainly because they want to know exactly what the client wants. So if it's a curly dog, a big drawing, a background, they may think, I want to know the specifics before I give the price. A client may be thinking, perhaps they try and barter with each individual. They may know, or they may ask how much money I've got to spend. I may say £600, and they may say, okay, that's great. And then somebody else may have contacted them and said, well, I want to spend £200, and they say, yeah, that's okay too. So not everybody is getting a fair amount. That's something I'd have in the back of my mind. Absolutely, my opinion is make your prices easy to see on your website and always put them on your website. You can put the prices on there, and if you want, you can say these are general prices. If you want more complicated things like extra animals in it, extra detailed backgrounds, items that are going to take me a lot longer to do, these are general price. Now email me for us to talk together and make up a specific price. I'd be perfectly fine with that and doing that. Okay, so put a price on there, otherwise I think you'll lose lots and lots of potential clients, and make the price easy to find on your site. So just have a link at the top, prices, click it, have a chart underneath that shows sizes and prices, as simple as that. As I said, I'll put the prices at the end. So once you've got your prices worked out, how do you know to increase your prices? Okay, because you can't stay at the same price all the time. If you stay at the same price all the time, in 10 years you're probably going to be earning 15% less per drawing, painting, because you haven't put your prices up, but inflation's gone up. Do you just link it to inflation? Suppose you can do, but you want to be really surging ahead in front of inflation. So as you get more clients, as you get better, as you get a reputation, as your, most important, your contacts list for your mail shots grows, as all of that comes together and you've got more experience, you should be seeing things like, rather than having perhaps 5 commissions a year, now you've got 15 commissions a year. Then you can start to put your prices up. Even better than that, when you're advertising and putting your mail shots out and you're saying, as you see loads of artists say online, you want to get to that stage of, I'm opening my books for next year, and perhaps this is February on the year before, or whenever. So perhaps it's February and you're saying, I'm opening my books for 2024, for next year. Grab them while you can, because these sell out fast. If you find that within a couple of weeks, say 2 weeks, you've got 12 commissions, okay, and you only want to do 12 per year, for instance, perhaps they take you a month to do, or you've got 30 commissions, and whatever you want. If you find that they're selling out your positions fast, that's an absolute indicator you can put your prices up. Okay, so when you're so in demand that you can't meet demand, that's when you know you can put the prices up. So it's not something you're guessing. If you were finding, I've got my prices at whatever, let's say £500, and I'm only getting 5 commissions a year, that's it. Now is not the time to be putting your prices up. You need to see if your artwork is good enough for those prices. Perhaps you're pricing yourself too high. You need to make sure that potential clients are finding you online. That could be massive. No matter how good you are, if people can't find you in searches or on social media, even if they find you on social media, they'll want to go to a website to verify really who you are and to look more into what you supply. So, definitely have a website, but that's another reason why you may not be selling. As far as perhaps the market, perhaps crashing again, there's millions and millions of people that are out there looking for things like pet portraits, so there's always going to be people that got money. So don't start thinking, I need to keep reducing prices all the time to I can't outprice myself. If you've done your bit of market research and worked out what other artists are charging and they are selling, you need to just get to those clients. Okay, so I've talked almost 30 minutes, so let's get to some other areas. Now get to the prices as well. Okay, so some other quick tips. How much should you be putting your percentages up? I'd say around about, say 15% when you've got full books. Okay, so rather than go up say 5% at a time, I'd go a bit higher than that. Make sure that your prices are the same across the board, so don't go giving one price on Facebook or one price in the local vets and another one on social media. That's not really fair. I'd like you to have the same prices set up, and it's fair for everybody. Okay, so let's get onto some prices. At the beginning, make sure, or always take some sort of down payment deposit before you even start putting a pencil or paintbrush onto a creation. Get that on there. That kind of safeguards you. Watch out for scammers as well. If it seems too good to be true, it usually is. So make sure you get money up front, make sure it's something like a bank transfer or PayPal payment, and make sure that's cleared. So prices. What I've done, I've looked online and I've looked at a general artist that's pretty good, fairly long time standing online. Okay, so they're not a brand new artist, they're not a complete beginner that's not got many technical skills yet, because you can still make, you know, little bits of money even if you're beginning. I'm trying to aim it at the artists that I think are asking me these questions. They've already probably had some commissions, have already done work for family and friends that were delighted with it. Now they want to take it further. Bear in mind, all this depends on if you've got a following at all. Okay, if you haven't, perhaps go a little bit lower with these prices. Okay, so what I looked at loads of artists. As I said, they've been around for a little while, but they're not the, you know, the best out there. They're not the ones that have been on there for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years that have already built their prices right up. If you do a search for pet portrait artists, these are the ones that usually come up a couple of pages in, but seem to be making a living out of it. Okay, I'm going to price it in pounds because that's easy for me. You need to be doing this type of market research yourself anyway. Not to specifically say, or you live in Texas, I'm only looking at Texas, that's irrelevant. But if you're in the USA, look at, you know, specific dollars as well. So what I was finding is quite a wide range. So most of the people that's learning from me, they're doing pastels. So I've looked at that because things like oils are usually perceived to be, people will pay a bit higher for oils than they will for, say, pastels, and watercolor in general is lower again. So let's just look at pastels. Something 12 by 10 inches, say a one, all of these are just a one animal drawing. You'd be looking at around about 250 to 400 pound, okay, for something like that. A 16 by 12, you'd be looking at perhaps 300 pound to say 600 pound. So it's, you know, a wide range. 18 by 14, you'd be looking at say 450 pound to say 500-600 pound, and then something large like a 20 by 16, you'd be looking at between 500 pound and say 700 pound. Now, dependent on who you are, your upbringing, where you live, you may be thinking, wow, that's cheap. Or you may be thinking, wow, that's really dear. You've got to try not to let your perceived value of money come into it too much. Okay, there's people out there with money for these things. You've also got to be thinking about how much time you're putting into it, the equipment, you know, your supplies. That's not going to be massive anyway, but think of that as well. Heating, electric if you're working from home. So here's some general prices. Okay, I'll go through it again of what I would suggest for your average artist that's, you know, producing good work, just getting into it. I'd be looking at 12 by 10s, I'd say around about 250 pound. 16 by 12s, I'd say about 350 pound. 18 by 14s, about 450. 20 by 16s, I'd say about 600 pound. Now, if you're the type of person that wants to work it out per square inch, okay, that works out roughly at £2 per square inch. Okay, all of that you're working at around about £2 per square inch if you wanted to do it that way. Personally, I would rather not do it like that and have a round figure for, you know, say, the way I would work it if I was doing pet portraits is I would say a dog with either a very basic background or no background, 12 by 10, 250 pound. And then I would say, if you want a complicated background put in there, contact me for updated, accurate prices. Okay, I'd work it like that, because somebody could say, yeah, I want this background in it, It's not too complicated, and you think, oh, I'll put another £50 on it, and you find out it's kind of like their garden, and they may have like an obelisk and a structure and a special tree and something else in it, and it may take you forever to do. Okay, you need to know what you're getting yourself into before you take a deposit and before you commit to it. So I'd say these prices are for no background or very little, so say perhaps a little bit of PanPastel on there. So those are the prices I would start with, and then, as I said, look to see, you've got to keep a commission book, how quick this gets filled. There's only so many hours in the day, and if you're working another job as well, you know, you've got to work out for yourself how much time you've got, how much money you need to make. Is this feasible? Is it viable? Or you can work it out per hour. Okay, so if you're looking at a 12 by 10 and you're saying £250 and it takes you 10 hours to do it, that's £25 an hour. You need to work out if that's enough. Is that enough? Is it, could you go higher, lower, whatever? So this is why lots of artists don't like to give out prices. So much of it comes down to your own personal circumstances and specifics, but I did want to give you some prices to start with. Now, a website in the UK, something very basic by a web designer, may cost you, all according to who does it obviously, but say £300 at the minimum to say £600. Now, if you can spend your time doing your drawings instead, you're better off letting the professionals design your website. You know then it's all going to be good and it'll be found in search engines, so you know the clients are actually finding you. Hopefully this has been useful to you. Ask me questions in the comments. I'll help in any way I can. As I said, I don't actually bother selling my originals anymore. I didn't particularly enjoy commissions. Really, I like to draw what I like to draw rather than be told what I'm going to draw. But there's definitely a market out there for commissions. I hope you've enjoyed watching the drawings. As I've been talking as well, I said it's better than looking at my face all the time, and it meant that I can do things like scratch my nose as well. Hopefully this has been of use, and I wish you all the best if you're trying to be a pet portrait artist or a professional artist. It can be done. I'm proof that it can be done. You can make a good living out of this, and there's lots of pet portrait artists making a good living too. Good luck.